The opinions expressed on this show are solely those of Jeremy Hinks and Sticky Jazz Podcast and do not necessarily reflect those of anyone else on this planet.
Everybody, welcome to Sticky Jazz. I'm Jeremy Hinks, and this week I have on John Ashton. He's the original guitarist for the Psychedelic Furs, one of the principal music writers for them. And then he fired off just not long ago a band called Satellite Paradiso, which was also a super group of just people that he had worked with over the years and brought in to make some amazing music. So we're going to talk a lot about that too. That album was fantastic. So, all right, welcome to the show, John.
Hi, thank you. Nice to meet you again, Jeremy.
Again.
We've run into each other over the years. So
yeah, this is okay to the listeners. I worked a Psychedelic Furs Bunnyman tour back in, was it 2001, right?
Right.
Yeah, it was 2001.
Yeah.
But I have seen and met John a lot over the years, just at different venues, different tours, and go back to the first time I met you was at Club Deviate in Salt Lake City on the World Outside tour.
Wow. Okay.
And that was the first time I had met the band on the whole, and I had a very cool clip of Guitar Magazine article with you in it, and I had you sign that. Like, that was a really special one for me, because I was like, well, I'll be seeing, so had to bring that in and have you sign that with all the other vinyls there.
Right. I can't say I remember it specifically, but I do have recollections, definitely.
Well, that was cool, because it was like the first time that I met you, and I just got to talk to you about some of your guitar riffs and just some of my favorite ones that you had done it over the years. Especially, I talked to you about Torch, especially. That was like such a somber, powerful song. And you and Knox had done, that was just magical, man. That still is probably the best Furs piece that's ever been done.
Oh, thank you. It was it's mostly acoustic. So there's some electric in there, but yeah, it's mostly an acoustic song.
Well, I've got all four versions that you guys recorded. I got the album version, the BBC version, and then the electric version on the 10-inch for House.
Right. Okay.
And then I think there's one other one that I got that was just very stripped down. And that's the only one I don't have your autograph on, is the BBC one, actually.
Oh, I'll have to take care of that at some point.
I didn't have the CD last time I saw you guys. I didn't have it on hand, but so we have 30 some odd years that I've been going to your concerts and whatnot. And then now you've got the Satellite Paradiso, right? That one, let's just talk a little bit about that record, because you pulled a lot of your mates in from the Psychedelic Furs for that.
Yeah. Well, it started off, I was living in Bearsville in a large cabin, sort of like a arts and crafts period cabin from like the 30s, 40s.
Okay.
It was all wood, and it had a huge front. It basically was one large room with a little kitchen, and there was a pantry in that kitchen, but there was also like there was a bedroom and with the bathroom attached to it, and then to the side. So if you came in the front door, essentially there was my studio, which was on the left-hand side, which was like the roof came down like an A shape.
Yeah.
And then so that was the studio, and then it'd be on the right would be the bathroom that would go into like what was the bedroom. And if you went down the hallway, you'd end up in the kitchen, or if you turned right, you ended up in this really large in this really large room, which was all wood and faced north. So it was on the bottom of a mountain where actually David Bowie had ended up buying property. It was, you could see it from Route 28, which runs sort of west from Kingston, New York, to sort of Pine Hill, to the ski areas of the Catskills. So you would see this mountain, and on top of it was a place called the Pitcairn, Cairn, Pitcairn Estate, which was originally owned by the owners of Pittsburgh Paints, and they built a big mansion up there. And then in later years, I think one of the Carnegie members of the Carnegie family bought it and turned it into a recording studio, which became Allaire Studios.
Okay.
Had a short span, probably about 10 years or so, but I know David Bowie had gone up there and recorded one of his albums there. I'm not quite sure which one. Might have been, I don't know. Anyway. So he sort of like kind of fell in love with the Catskills at that point, as most people do when they come to record in the Catskills. I think something either kind of triggers you to want to come back, or you never want to come back. I don't know, but he definitely did, and he bought property up there on the mountain. So I lived on the other side of the mountain, down on a road called Yankeetown Pond Road. And my neighbor right across from me was Kate Pearson at the time.
Oh wow! Well, yeah, but you also toured with
yeah, but that was later. That was later. So I was living in that cabin from '94 till 2000, and the Furs had officially gone on hiatus, I think, around about '92. So I had started writing. I had a 16-track reel-to-reel Fostex 16-track B16. A SEC mixing desk, some outboard gear that I sort of cobbled together. A friend of mine had given me an old mixing board, a Class A, like a Neve style board, and a friend of mine who worked up at Bearsville Studios, Robert Fraser, who's a tech up there, he built a rack for me. So I have these 4 mic pre's and 4 EQs in a rack, and so that was essentially my in from my guitar, my amp, or whatever. Would go into those EQs, mic pre's and EQs, and I would go then into the mixing board and onto tape. So I had a rack of other stuff there. It was a small little control room, but it served me well. I started writing there, I say '94. I wrote the beginnings of Angelic there, and a bunch of other songs there. Off the top of my head, I can't recall, but most of the songs that are on the album started out on tape in that studio. I had Paul Garisto come and play drums on I think it was he played on Angelic. He was living in the area in a place called Downsville, which is near it's sort of like near Cairo, Delhi, that sort of area. There's a famous sort of fishing spot there. It's the kind of like the beginnings of the American fly fishing movement.
So I bet that's one of Knox's favorite places up there, I guess.
Yeah. So it's on the river there. I forget the name of it right now, but it's kind of a famous place. It's where the beaver kill comes in, and
right.
Back in the '20s, these rich guys like Lee Wolf and stuff who are writers would come, and they discovered the birth of American fly fishing started there. So it's the Catskills is kind of really synonymous with that. But anyway, Paul Garisto was living in the area, and I invited him over, and he came and stayed a few nights, and we cut some tracks. Angelic was one of them. I had a drum kit in that room, so it was mic'd up nicely. And I had a snake that ran from that room into my studio, into my control room. Man, it was a pretty decent setup. So I captured some good sounds there. And so
is that where you started? You started back in '93, '94 on
94,
wow.
Yeah. I started it in '94 originally with the idea of writing for the Furs.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, I thought, well, maybe the Furs get back together again. They have some songs, but as it turned out, that wasn't the case. I mean, we got back together in 2000, and we wrote some stuff. some songs. I remember Wrong Train, I think, which
Yeah.
ended on the last Furs album. Very different. It was much more raw and yeah, it's a different sounding to what they ended up actually, having on their album. But yeah, that was written around that time. Well, actually
Okay.
around 2000. But yeah, started in '94. Um, I had Paul come and play. I had BP from X-Ray Specs come and play on a track
Right. Yeah. That was.
on Insomnia. Um, and so yeah, the germ of Satellite Paradiso started there, and then once I'd moved into my current place, I had started then started using Logic uh, as a program to record on because I went digital, around 2000 I went digital.
Yeah. That was the way to do it back then. Yeah.
Yeah, so I used Logic for a good while, and then when I eventually went to mix the Paradiso album, which was 2013, with Anthony Molina, he had Pro Tools, and I learned Pro Tools from a little bit from him. He had a cool mixing desk. Actually, it was a Soundtracks mixing desk that belonged to Lou Reed at one point.
Oh,
So he had that. So yeah, it's all steeped in.
did Lou sign it? If so, I think I might.
I think he might have signed it
I'll go
epithelium.
steal it, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You could try. I'll ask Anthony if he's still got it. He's in Rochester now. I just spoke to him actually the other day.
Well,
Yeah.
'cause I remember when you and I were talking about the Velvets. Like one time I said, Tim always looked like John Cale. You said, yeah, he tried to. John's his idol. Oh, okay, right. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. Tim was a huge, huge. Both Tim and Richard were huge Velvet Underground fans, as I was too. I came to the Velvets a little bit later. Um, my big. We'll get to the beginnings in a minute, but um, yeah, Tim was a real huge John Cale fan, and we got to
mhm.
play with John Cale when we came to New York. He came and jammed with us on India at the Ritz.
Oh man, I bet
Yeah.
Tim was. I was probably he's like over the moon with that one. Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, we were all pretty excited by it. I mean, he was playing the viola on
Right.
the track, and I kind of went at him with my guitar, and he's like, yeah, it's great,
So,
Yeah.
because what I loved like Angelic, right, was yeah, you brought that one up. Um, I need to give the Ancients a good listen. I have to because of where
Oh
he came
yeah,
from. Yeah,
yeah,
I've never really dove into them, but with how he sounded on your record was just oh man, I'm gonna have to go and dig into that.
Oh, you got to listen to his latest stuff that he did with Big Paul Ferguson, uh,
Okay,
Killing Joke. It's called Light of Eternity. Oh, you got to check that
okay,
out. He just put that out, within the last year. He went on tour with it. Yeah, Fred's got some pipes, and
well yeah, he does, which he had, and not to diss Richard's vocals, right, but he had a very powerful, aggressive, you know,
yeah,
sound to it. And on Angelic, I was like, man, I mean, again, this was different than the other songs you've written and the direction that you guys are going with that. I mean, a lot of it sounds like American Western movie soundtrack rock, you
yeah.
know.
All right, I'll
And
take
I
that.
was like, man, coming from one of my favorite British rock stars, I would like, but it sounded like, okay, you got in there, something hit you, a new sound hit you, and you just
Yeah,
wrote in that, and it turned out sounding really well.
I yeah, I think what it is that my original roots were always in like the early, I grew up with Bowie and
Right.
T-Rex and Alice Cooper and Slade
Oh,
and
by the way, listen, man, I photographed Alice Cooper last Sunday.
Malcolm. Yeah.
Opening for so it had Corrosion of Conformity, one of my old high school punk bands that I used to go see all the time. And then Alice Cooper and the Judas Priest. It was one hell of a show, man.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Alice is maintained like Iggy has, One doesn't
Yes.
realize the actual the power that these guys have and had in their careers, and very unassuming people in real life. But well, you've got him on stage, and this is a different world. But going back to the ancients.
Yeah.
Um, I have a friend, and he knew that I was looking for somebody to sing, to vocalize. I'd sent him some tracks. He said, I have this friend.
Let me
His
think
name's
about
Fred
that.
Schreck.
Fred and Alice. Let me think. I mean,
Yeah.
well, okay. I can see this of the delivery, the very hard, power behind that voice delivery there. Like yeah, Fred has enough like Alice. I bet Fred on stage. Well, I've seen the live. Fred on stage just, you know,
Oh yeah,
really
yeah.
unloads it. That's great.
We
So,
did actually, Fred, Frank, and I. We did a cover of an Alice Cooper song called "Sick Things." Um,
do I
which
have? No, I don't have that.
no, you don't because it didn't release it. It's
Well, share the love, man. You know how to get it to me.
yeah, all right, okay.
I'm the greedy bastard. I want it all, man. Come on.
Yeah, it's pretty true to form, I love that song and I just wanted to do a version of it. So, I've got it. It's in the archives. But
It's in the John Vault. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I have I get an email from Rob Sacker, who used to run a place called Luna Lounge on Ludlow Street.
Okay.
Luna Lounge was really the home of Elliott Smith for a long time. He used
Oh
to come
wow.
here
Okay.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
write
I know
lyrics
Elliott
there.
Smith too. Yeah.
And Rob and his wife Diane ran that club together. They had run several clubs before, and then they ran one afterwards. But the one on Ludlow Street in the 90s and early 2000s was the birthplace of. It became like a stand-up place also. Like people like John Stewart used to go there a lot to work on material. But Rob was a really cool guy. He was a true music fan. He has great stories in his book, which is called "Wake Me When It's Over." It's a great read. I suggest you check it out.
Okay.
It journals his life as a music fan, right from the word go, and "Wake Me When It's Over." It's a song title, obviously.
Wake me when it's over.
Yeah, Rob Sacker, fabulous book. Really a great book. So Rob's wife Diane had a band called The Ancients, uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and Fred was in The Ancients. He'd also been in another band with BP Ferguson, Big Paul, and the one-time guitarist of Susie and the Banshees, John Carruthers. It was called Crush.
Well, Susie's had what, 22 guitarists over the years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Mackay was the OG, and he's still going, and we chat once in a while. Loved him, um, and then she had John Klein from Specimen and a few other bands. But then my favorite guitar player that she had, I think, was John McGeoch. John
Okay.
McGeoch was playing in Magazine at the time. Magazine. He was playing in Magazine, and he was also playing in Susie and the Banshees. And then he finally joined Pill and toured with them for many years and did some albums with them. Fabulous guitar player, super, super cool guy, sweetheart. Lost him. We lost him way too soon. You know.
Like too many of them, you know.
Yeah,
Well, like
yeah.
what? Okay, just this week. What about you? What did you think of Ace?
Oh God. Well, I mean, I was always a Kiss fan on the side.
Uh-huh.
I respected them. I didn't really. You know what?
I
Kiss and Ace, they were in my mind. They were the stars of the band. Paul and Gene. They were too serious and too into themselves. But Ace, and yeah, Ace and Chris, they were just like they were they would always be bouncing off each other, make cracking jokes. Like friend of mine sent me a compilation of Ace's laughs, it's
Uh-huh.
on YouTube.
Yeah, everyone said his laugh was pretty legendary. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then the clip from the Tom Snyder show, which
Uh-huh.
is just so good, and you really realize like what rock stars these guys were. I mean, just insane
Well,
rock
yeah,
stars.
so yes, Kiss were the epitome of rock stars. Like like Alice Cooper was a comedian with a penchant for old classic
Theater.
horror films,
Well,
right?
he was into theater. He was also into Broadway.
Right,
Uh,
yeah, and so he was using all the old like vaudevillian
Broadway,
traveling
exactly.
show,
Yeah,
right. And that was Alice, but
traveling show. Yeah,
Kiss took a bunch of kabuki ideas and pushed
right.
it into rock stardom like
Yeah,
crazy,
yeah, yeah.
because when I mean I didn't join the Kiss army or whatever. I wouldn't turn it off when I heard it, right? Like that I was like, okay, yeah, I can enjoy this. This is fun.
Right,
But is probably late 80s was when I was like, nah, it didn't
yeah,
keep my interest
right,
after that, right? But
right.
the 70s and 80s stuff, but yeah, I mean, like Ace, like, yeah, he was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just realized now, like it was always like Gene and Paul were always up front, but the other two were like they just made it, They just,
They
you
were
know,
just like, yeah, like Kiss would not like you could get a stand into for Peter or Eric or whatever, right? You'd have to have a really good drummer. But
yeah,
Ace was just so raw. He was
yeah,
also
yeah,
the guy who
yeah,
invented the shooting fireworks out of his
yeah,
guitar shit. I mean, that was
yeah.
rock stars over the top, man.
Yeah, exactly, and yeah, all props to them for really running with it. I always felt like Gene took himself too seriously. He was too businessman. Paul was just too like I'm so fabulous. The other two were just like laughing at, they were just joking the whole time. They couldn't keep
Yeah,
a straight face because of the ridiculousness of the whole thing. I mean,
yeah.
it's just like it's ridiculous, but they're just like selling out stadiums left, right, and center. Every album of theirs either went gold or triple gold or platinum, multi-platinum. They had a fabulous career, and so it is a terrible thing to see him go. Ace was just
Well, 74 is pretty good.
yeah, yeah,
74 is pretty good. But like Kiss, Rob Zombie, Slipknot, all those guys, right? They're all Guar, right?
yeah, yeah,
They're all into the fun theatrics of it all. And
exactly.
I think that Alice Cooper took it one way where it was like a vaudevillian Broadway show
Mhm,
of cheesy fun horror. But
mhm,
Kiss took it the completely, other direction. And I think the guys from Guar were like, hey, let's do this where we're space aliens. I mean, it just got to be so
right, right,
and I owe a lot of kudos to those guys,
yeah,
just
yeah. For
and
sure. The same kind of kudos that one could have, towards Iggy or the Velvet Underground, with that kind of much more stripped down, but very powerful kind of approach to rock music. Um, like maybe um, like Detroit kind of played a big part in rock music. It,
absolutely. What like, Detroit, you had disco,
right.
techno,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And not all punk came from New York City. You had Iggy Pop
No,
come out of there. You had the MC5 come out of there.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
it was a different kind of anger. It was just
it
uh,
was a blue collar anger, not a street
yeah,
anger,
exactly.
right?
It wasn't an arty anger.
Like Sid and them, they had their, the Sex Pistols over in England, Generation X, they had their anger towards the class system, right?
Hmm.
New York had the New York scene had an anger about, just the absurdity of how crazy all this was in New York, coming down on everything. We're rebelling against the upper echelons of society here in New York because so many people live here. Fuck you. It's not all, like the New Yorker magazine, right?
Right,
That was the
right.
Velvets laid that down and everybody else took it. But I think that Detroit was like, look, we're the blue collar auto workers, Rust Belt,
Yeah, yeah.
and the way these factories are treating everybody, they boom
Right.
and then they fold, they boom and they fold, and everyone's out. And I mean, so that was
And
a totally different appeal to punk as well.
yes, and also it was, before the EPA was of any effective use, so they were just dumping shit into the rivers, you know, anything and everything just came out of those factories, and they didn't give a crap, about the environment. So, and then, the workers had to live amongst it. So there was a kind of an urban decay that was going on, and the same with Devo in a way, where they came out of, was it Akron, that
Yeah,
area,
Akron, Ohio. Yeah,
as did what you call it,
the
Peruva
Pretenders, the
and
Pretenders.
Peruva Pretenders.
Yeah,
Yeah, so each pocket of blue collar, uh, and you don't really think of New York City as blue collar, but obviously it is, it was, not so much anymore. Now it's really just a
it's
billionaire's
just
playground.
billionaires and finance people up there
Yeah,
now.
I mean,
Yeah,
New York is just antiseptic. I mean, just like there's no soul there anymore. I love the cool old iconic buildings. There's some good aspects to New York, like the skyline and stuff like that. But essentially, it's just there's no soul there anymore.
yeah.
There's no people there anymore that can afford to live there. So there's no art. There's no music unless you're like, Jeffrey Combs or or someone, someone really higher up. I mean, I remember New York as being. I mean, I saw New York on TV in the 70s. Fort Apache, the Bronx. That was the kind of, that's the kind of, vision I had of New York. It was like, derelict cars and, just, a lot of, just everything in New York was black and white. There was no color photographs of New York. Everything was black and
Okay,
white.
okay, I get what you're
You know what
saying.
I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, there
And
was
then,
a decay there, um, but at the same time, there was the romanticism of 40s and 50s theater and film. Set in the heart of Greenwich Village, for instance. Uh, those pockets of I'll call it beauty, call it what you will, but art definitely. And then when the city kind of collapsed due to funding, a lot of these what were once sweatshops or factories on down in Soho became lofts, artist lofts, because they were cheap.
yeah,
So there was cheap. You could have you had room, you could create, you could sculpt, you could do all this stuff in the 60s and 70s, and even in the 80s until the gentrification started.
yeah. There's life cycles of cities. So
But I still love New York. I love the iconic buildings in New York. I love the Empire State Building. I love the Chrysler Building. Yeah,
uh-huh.
there's certain pockets of New York that are just like they'll never go away. They just get crowded in by the bigger buildings. The skyline always changes in New York forever.
Well, um, let's see. Let's go to Invisible. All
Hmm.
right.
Okay.
That one started out with some very familiar guitar work, right? A bit of a open, like open dreaming sky going west, right? I remember just
Yeah.
listening to that. And then I thought after a while, it could have been the Bolshoi. It could have been Trevor Tanner and the Bolshoi. I was like, this is like you caught a very specific slice of time in that with that one. And
Some
oh,
of it intentional, some of it unintentional. I think it was just the sum of the parts, the way they came together. Um, like musically, it came together pretty quickly, but the finessing of it perhaps took a little bit longer. I spent a long time trying to mix that record,
Okay.
and
Well,
I was,
because I pause button here. Because the Furs hadn't done anything since World Outside,
right.
and then Richard was off doing Love Spit Love with Fortis and Frank and everybody,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
was fantastic, but they only did those two, and then they kind of just sat there. And
yeah,
I obviously here you were trying to make a record, still making music over all this time.
right.
And I mean, Richard did his solo records and all that, but the Furs hadn't done anything new.
No, no. Well, I had written that stuff with the intention of it being, used as a Furs album. You can't lie about that.
Hmm.
What happened was we got back together in 2000. Like I said, um, we did. There was a version of a song called "Cigarette," which was basically the same chords. It was a. I played it for Richard. I played "Angelic" for Richard, and he's like, "No, no, no," and we kind of sort of changed it around a little bit, and it was just like, this is not doing it for me. And I don't know. But so, I think it was a matter of like we had to write something new completely. And so, Wrong Train came up out of that.
Yeah.
And then Tim and I started writing. But the thing was, I don't know, Richard was, after the two Love Spit Love albums and doing that 2000 tour and then going with the Bunnymen, in amongst that, Richard would not come up and work. I would constantly ask him, I said, can't you come up and we'll work on some songs. Yeah, yeah, I will. And then in the meantime, he puts out two other solo albums, and I just was like, I don't know, I don't know what's going on. So it held me up in a lot of ways. I was not in the music business per se anymore. I was in the film business. I was working as a prop in the film business. I had my, first child, or rather my second child, Oliver, in 2007. Tallulah came along in 2010. And then I started getting antsy, and I was really not happy with a lot of things in my life. So I said, like, I looked at this body of work that I had, and I'm like, I've got to do something with this. If I don't do it now, I'm never gonna. And then so I started reworking everything, reworking all those songs, and then started contacting various people. And that in that period, Fred had come
And then
along.
Fred landed in your
Yeah,
backyard,
yeah,
which
through
was
by
amazing. Yeah.
Rob. Fred had come along, so I sent him a couple of songs, and he got back to me pretty quick. And I was blown away because not only was he writing lyrics and good ones, his performance was all really good, and also he didn't just sing raw. He had effects on his vocals that he controlled. He has a specific vocal chain of effects that he likes to use, and so therefore, I mean, we're dealing with an actual artist, not just like a singer going, where's whatever. He really is, and he plays too. So he's a great bass player. So he approached it from a completely different angle, and we hit it off. And the other guy in the band that I have to give props to is Frank Coleman, who played a lot of the drums that followed after. We had Paul Garisto playing drums, had BP Herding playing drums, and I think pretty
But
much
you
the
you
rest.
you had Amanda in there, you had Mars, you had I
Yeah,
mean,
oh yeah, yeah. I had Cheetah Chrome. That was a fun experience trying to get Cheetah to record. In fact, I threw that one in Frank in Fred's lap because Cheetah's living in Nashville at the time, and Fred's like, yeah, I can get hold of him. So he managed to get Cheetah into the studio, and ran the track a few times and got the best he could out of him. And we had to finagle the parts a little bit, but I figured a riff out from all the stuff that Cheetah played. I figured out some parts that worked and kind of looped them, and it was a little bit of massaging to get him in there, but it was good. It was good. I'm glad we did it. And I'm trying to think of which song it is. It's one of the heavier ones, so one of the faster ones.
Touch the Sky.
No, 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 no. Uh,
Because that one was pretty heavy.
yeah, that one's heavy. That's kind of like where I ended up. You know, I think Angelic is where I started out.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of like a run on from the Furs in a way. It's Touch the Sky was kind of where I ended up. Yeah, and then Insomnia was in between there somewhere. And what's the name of that song? I don't have the. You shout it out. I don't have the list in front of me.
I got Dream. Was it Dream?
No.
Okay. Let's see. Touch the Sky.
Situation.
Okay. All right. Situation. All right.
That's what he played on. And that's my sort of, I call that my skater song, because it just slams pretty hard. So I think it reminds me of Pulse a lot, the first track Pulse.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's aspects of the Furs in it, but there's also there's that kind of open or more the explorative sort of Enrico Morricone kind of vibe that I try to bring into it. But I layered so much shit on top of that stuff. And then
I got a good Bolshoi in there, Trevor Tarrant Bolshoi. And I got some of the ice.
Bolshoi.
What's that?
Someone would say it's a bunch of Bolshoi.
And I got some Ice House in there too. I was enjoying that. Yeah, Ice House are good. But we can't escape that there was Gail in there, Gail Ann Dorsey on bass, man. Like,
Auntie Gail, she's referred to in our house.
Oh, Auntie. Oh, so she's like, oh, right, okay.
Yeah, well, my daughter Tallulah made her a bracelet. And Tallulah is always making jewelry, and she had these little word blocks, and with the letters of the alphabet, like store. And she made her a bracelet on a leather thong, and it said Auntie Gail on it, and she gave it.
Oh boy! Oh
and
man!
Gail was working with Lenny Kravitz at the time, and Lenny would always summon his musicians into his boudoir for like a fit check or like to make sure that they weren't gaining too much weight. It's a narcissistic kind of approach to like treating his band. But it's Lenny, so whatever. And she comes in and she's wearing her thing, and he's on the bed. He's like, "What's that?" And he's pointing at her wrist, and she puts it right up to him like this, and she goes, "That's Auntie Gail," and he kind of goes, "Okay, yeah, okay."
Like what's funny is because
she's got balls, man.
She does. But I mean, she's just again like to the listeners. John and I were both when I brought her name up, we're both bowing like we're not worthy, man. Because Gail's she's a powerhouse and just wonderful.
I just saw her recently doing a solo thing.
I see her everywhere. I will see her name slapped on every
Well, she does the Bowie orchestra thing. She does another Bowie tribute thing with like a lot of the guys that played on his records. She also has done stuff with other bands. You get older, you get CRS, and it's like trying to remember the names of the bands that she's played with recently, and they're pretty impressive. But there's also, Sarah Lee's on that album.
Mm-hmm.
She's I saw her recently with Gang of Four. She rejoined Gang of Four for a part of it for a tour, along with David Pajo, who I didn't really know much about. David Pajo was in a band called Slint, and he has got a bunch. I think we had a band called Tortoise. He's had a whole bunch of solo projects, but he channeled Andy Gill like you would not believe. This guy is a monster guitar player. And so it was like Sarah Lee, David Pajo, and the other two,
Well, I just saw I just saw Gail with not a different guy. I just saw Gang of Four with um Gail Greenwood.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They've gone through a few touring members. Uh,
Well, yeah, I so I met like that was funny. I was just backstage working on I was working at this festival just a
right.
couple of months ago, and I asked the guy to there was the guy driving golf carts around. And hey man, can you take me to that gate over there? I got to get out of here and I got to go out that gate. And so he drives me over. I hop on the golf cart and I'm like, wait a minute, you're John King. Yeah,
Hmm.
you're Gail. You're Gang of Four. Yeah, like I was supposed to come and shoot you guys,
Right.
you know. And
They
oh,
were
she
fantastic, by the way. Hugo Burnham, and John King, original surviving members, and to be fair, Sarah Lee was with them through the Man in a Uniform period, which I think was like their third album. So she's got some incredible.
yeah, I would have loved to have seen him with Andy. I really do. I would have loved to have seen him with
I used to
Andy.
see them with Andy in London a
Yeah.
lot of times, but David Parho, I swear to God, man, if you watch him, go run. If you go to see him, if you get a chance to see him play, the guy is like a gem. Just run,
Okay.
don't walk. He's got so many different projects, but his input into the work of Andy, and I walked up to him afterwards and I said, I got to tell you, man, that was amazing because I said, what amp are you using? He goes, well, I'm just trying, it's like a Dr. Z or something. And he goes, I'm trying to emulate Andy's sound. I goes, yeah, well, he used to use Carlsberg's. And he lit up. He went, yes, yes, I know. And I can't get one. And I'm like, yeah, I used to have one. They were like the cheapo amps in England. They were transistor based and they weren't tube. They were, they weren't valve amps. They were cheaper, but they had a sound to them. Like a Carlsberg and HH were the when people kind of couldn't afford Marshalls and Fenders, the English and like Laney was the only other band, amp manufacturer in England that used tubes. I mean, there were a few, there was Selmer and all that, and they were all a bit more expensive. So Carlsberg and HH were like more affordable.
Yeah.
So a lot of the punk bands had those Carlsberg amps. And I remember when I worked with Sisters of Mercy, they had Carlsberg amps as well. And I had a Carlsberg amp, so.
So you worked with the Sisters of Mercy?
Yeah, I did their first single, Alice.
No way.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. All
Yeah,
right.
I do have a picture of the cover with my name on it. But they took it off after. But I produced 4 tracks for them over the period of 2 weekends.
Jeez.
I went to the cutting. I went to Porky's Prime Cuts in London, who was like the cutting engineer for budget bands. I cut the record, cut the disc there. And,
That's wild, man.
and they fucking took my name off the album, off the record. So fuck you, Andrew Eldridge. You know.
A lot of people say that. Yeah, a lot of people say that.
Yeah, that was a huge goth hit. It was one of the biggest
yeah. No,
hits,
yeah.
and he fucking cut me out of it. So can I swear on this?
Yeah.
Well, I already have. So,
You have, yeah. So
yeah.
well, so okay, over the years you and I have compared stories, right? And I only came into the rock and roll thing in 87, but you were in it much obviously. But and there are some stories on the tour that we can't talk about. Which just there were
There's a lot we can't talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot you and I
Best
can't
left
talk about
unsaid,
where we were both there. I mean, the
Yeah.
one time where that one message blurted out, and then you and I were staring at each other, and I was like, I'm not saying anything, and you're like, I'm staying out of this, right? But that was funny just because I hadn't thought about that in forever, and you're the one that brought that one up. I was like, oh God, that's right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so okay. Tell
Oh.
me your speakeasy story, because the one you told me, I was like, my God, like because like okay, I just interviewed Jaw Wobble a while ago, and he was talking about Sid and everything and all that. But just tell me the story that you told me. Like, my jaw was on the floor when you said that.
Well, all right. So my typical night when I was like I was living with a bunch of other punks in a house in Shepherd's Bush, Frithville, 99 Frithville Gardens. There was Rudy from X-Ray Specs, the sax player. His girlfriend owned the flat, Sally, and so there was Sally and Rudy, and then there was another guy named Tex and his girlfriend, who's a hairdresser. Tex and I still keep in touch. BP Herding,
Right.
also the drummer in X-Ray. So he wasn't living there, but he was in the area. So and a whole bunch of others, just come in and out. So I was at this place, and I would go like, and it's not far from the centre of London, but every night I would just go to Shepherd's Bush, get on the tube, go and get off on Oxford Street and walk down Wardour Street to the Marquee, where my friend Dave's girlfriend was always on the door, on the ticket booth, and she just nod me in, and there's no money. That was you had to have that skill set because there was no money, didn't have any money.
Yeah.
So I'd go in there and I'd see bands. I saw tons of bands there. I saw the Lurkers there. I saw Phil Collins when he came out on his solo stuff there. I saw I think I might have seen Generation X there at one point. I saw Chelsea there. A lot of the punk bands, and I'd see bands like Cody Monday was kind of like somewhere in between. A lot of sort of I saw Widowmaker. So there was a lot of rock kind of crossover bands, but then some punk bands as well. Then I would tend to drift over from there to the Roxy, which was kind of a little bit more gnarly. It changed hands. Originally owned by a guy named Andy Chizowski, who was a fabulous guy. His wife, they were the godfathers of punk. They brought in all the acts to the Roxy, and there was an album called Live at the Roxy with I think X-Ray Specs was on it, but a band called The Unwanted, which I actually ended up joining a few years later. And then inevitably I would end up at a speakeasy club, which was I think it was on Margaret Street. It was a short walk down Oxford and make a right and then a left, and you'd be in this you'd just go down some steps, and the speakeasy club was where rock royalty would hang out. You'd see anyone and everyone there. Bon Scott, Jimmy McCulloch from Wings. I'd see Johnny Thunders down there, and I'd see bands that come in from out of town. Would always end up there. Various Sex Pistols would end up there. And one night, I think I broke up a fight between Sid and somebody because he was just being an asshole. Because someone had said something to Nancy, and he got in their face, and the guy whose face he got into was a friend of mine, and I was like, come on, man, chill out, and managed to pull him apart. It was no big deal. But every night I was there, there was a fruit machine, a slot machine in the corner, like there is in every pub in England. There's always a slot machine. And Pong had just came out. That was the new. There was no Pong. There was just a slot machine. Lemmy would be by the slot machine every night, leather jacket, a bag full of 2-shilling pieces, which were like about that big.
Yeah.
Just like this all night. And, Lemmy was well known to us as being a man of the night, shall we say. So, and an all-round good geezer. So, they were Motorhead. So, they were,
yes, that was Motorhead. Yes. Yes.
So I'm not watching him, and like I knew he had something on him. So I went up to him and I said, "Lemmy," and you go,
Whoa,
"What?
whoa,
What?"
whoa, yeah,
I
oh
said,
yeah.
you wouldn't have a bit of speed on you, would you? You know, because no, no. He pulls out this bag. I'm just kid you not, it's a Ziploc bag like this, and it's got like it's like this. And I'm like, oh, cool. You know, he's just, and then at the same time as he's opening the bag, he opens the bag, puts it on the stool next to him, not on the bar, just on the stool, just below. Picks it up, he pulls a hunting knife out from the side like this, you know, sticks it in the bag and it shoves it, you know, like under my nose. And I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, I can't do that. You know, and he just looked at me, but got a piece of paper, dumped it in there, got his knife in there, dumped another one, got his knife, dumped another one. He wrapped it up and he gave it to me because here you go. And then I was like, cheers, thanks. And he went, turn around.
Right back to the slot
Yeah,
machine.
yeah. Fucking awesome. Fucking awesome.
Like if everybody tells the best Lemmy and Iggy Pop. I mean, I have an Iggy Pop story. Don't have a Lemmy story, but yeah, I thought you told me that. I was like, that is just
A real
who
dirty
gets.
man. He
But
just didn't make any bones about it. He was like, he didn't make a big deal about it. He was just like, he would, you know, he's a regular guy. He would never, you know, he's the kind of guy that would lean into a pretty girl and go, "Oh, I suppose there's any chance I could take you home tonight, is there?" And if she like said yes, he was in. If she said no, he'd be like, "All right."
all
He
right, yeah.
didn't give a shit. He didn't give a shit. It was
He
just
didn't.
perfect.
He didn't
Perfect.
have any ego. He's
Fucking
just a good
soul,
guy.
no,
Yeah.
salt of the earth. One of the best guys in the business.
Yeah,
Really,
I've
really
heard
good.
people have told amazing stories. Like one, I won't say her name, but I told you yesterday, but she told me one time in like late 70s, she was they're at a festival. She said it was somewhere in England. I'm in this festival and I was working my way through a really expensive bottle of scotch. And Lemmy walks back. You know, like they had babysitters for the band, you know, make sure that they didn't do drug, you know, whatever. And they were the bit ones getting him the drugs. But she said,
Yeah.
I'm sitting back there and I'm like going through this bottle. And I was just, I was so bad off that night. And I had been for the whole part of the tour. So Lemmy walks in, sees it, and goes, right, love, no more for you tonight. You've had enough. And he yanks the bottle out of my hand and
Right.
left. And she said,
Mhm.
you know, everybody else, Lemmy was the responsible adult.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you know, he went and drank it. She said, of course, it was Lemmy. Of course, he's gonna go drink my bottle of scotch. You know, he's
Right. Right.
and but she said he was very caring about that. And anytime she was
Yeah.
around afterwards, all right, everyone, put your shit away. Sober person here, she's straight. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
Lemmy respected her sobriety, man. Like,
Yeah.
what a guy.
He had a soul. He had a soul, and he was salt of the earth, and he was a real guy, and
Mhm.
you know, gotta love him. Gotta love him.
I mean, that
Gotta
was
I love Lemmy. You know.
yeah. We all like, even if you weren't a Motorhead fan, you had to love the guy. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, let's see. Where are we? God, we just had so much. The new out, like I said, there was a lot of your work that was different than what you did with the Furs, but
Yeah.
like, I still think, okay, I already told you before, uh, my favorite riff of yours, I mean, the favorite song you ever did was Torch, but then my favorite riff that you did was House,
Ah, yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's
That
mine too, actually. It's one of my favorites. Yeah.
that was so powerful. And I remembered on Book of Days when you played it,
Yeah.
and it was just like, you know, just amazing. But then when you would open it on let's see, the last time you and I hung out was what, oh four in Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio. I think that was the last time that
Yeah. Was
that
that
was,
on
yeah,
the
about
it
2004.
wasn't
Yeah.
on it wasn't on the Bunnymen, was it? It
No, no,
wasn't.
no. It was
That was
after the
post
Bunnyman
Bunnymen
tour.
tour.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just when you guys were playing, and you played at this Irish pub there in Columbus, Ohio. And I remember I just walked up and there were you and Frank, you know, sitting out front just leaning on the railing there, chatting. We walked up, like, oh hey guys, we're talking about the set list, and you're like, no, not playing Torch, none of that depressive shit, no, no. But you guys opened with House, and it was so powerful. It was just really, really well done.
I loved the beginning of that. It's one of my favorite first songs for a lot of different reasons. It came at a time when I needed it most. But that riff came out, and from me, I pulled it out from somewhere, and I just love the way it sets the song up, because it just starts with the
yeah. I'm like, oh god, this is,
and then it comes in, and you're just like, fuck,
yeah. But even lyrically, that song was a great fuck you song.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was a fabulous fuck you song.
I think the best first songs are always a good fuck you song, in one way or the other. There was times when Richard wanted to go into the dark room and beat himself up, which is post Midnight to Midnight,
right?
And he wanted to drag everybody in there with him, but some of us resisted, and we tried to kind of balance it out a little bit. But yeah,
Book
of Days was a great album.
Book of Days was, yes, Book of Days was Richard, and you mentioned this, but Richard was so pissed about Midnight to Midnight that he went in, he locked himself in that dark room and did write some very, very heavy songs.
I mean, he should have been pissed off. Midnight to Midnight was a fucking brilliant album before he watered everything down. I don't have any problem saying that at all. I'll look right in the camera and say it. If I challenge anyone that ever worked on that album to tell me anything different. Those rehearsal tapes and those times that we spent together working for months at a time, and Richard could not write lyrics, and he was stuck.
He hated the lyrics for that record,
and he kept on watering everything down. He wanted to make it poppy, and I'm like, oh, god damn it, And then on top of that, they copped my look. I was the guy in the motorcycle jacket. I was the guy, and they all start wearing fucking motorcycle jackets. And the album is like, some like fucking half-assed cheesy pop shit. No wonder he locked himself in the room after that. Fucking deserved to.
Well,
I don't say that with my hand on my heart,
Well,
that is why Book of Days is the album that it is, because he finally realized that, he had made a horrible mistake,
Well, okay, to the credit of Midnight to Midnight, okay, that was the first I knew Pretty in Pink, okay, but I was 12 years old living in this 12, 13 years old, and I moved to a little redneck town in southern Utah.
Right.
Okay. And there was this handful of misfits that we'd all sit around and listen to, punk and new wave stuff.
Right.
Because everybody else listened, and no dissing AC/DC or whatever, right? But that's all that AC/DC and country. And right. I'm like there listening with these guys, listening to all this great punk and new wave. And I heard Midnight to Midnight. That was my first introduction after that, and I freaking loved that record.
Yeah, thank you. I mean,
it was powerful. It was very uplifting. It was fun, but it was poppy, right? But to me, just learning that at the time, it was fine for me to do that.
I think most people, most true fans, would say that is when we lost the plot. We've lost the whole idea behind Psychedelic Furs.
Well, you guys got into and then you wandered around in that desert for a while, and
then the ego ramps and the stars behind it was just like, oh no, and again, like it was like, I was in disbelief, although at times that was a great tour to be on, but at other times, the Joshua Tree had just come out, I know that fucking killed Richard when he heard that, because it killed me. these guys had stuck true to their original idea. They just made it bigger. And what we'd done was like, oh, let's find a hit. Let's search, And I think it was post Mirror Moves, where Richard had a massive hit with Heaven and Ghosting You, and kind of cut a bunch of us out on the songwriting. Again, I'll say that on the hand of my heart. It's true. And that caused a lot of problems in the band, and subsequently caused me a lot of angst. And it ruined the band. It ruined the band. And so therefore, when we came back to working on Midnight to Midnight, I caused a big stink about it. And we were back to equal songwriting. And I remember distinctly working on songs like crazy. And Richard just could not. He could not. I don't know what it was. But he just didn't have it,
Well,
at moments. But sorry, but I'm just going to have to say,
go ahead. Yeah.
At times he did. There was glimpses of him that came out, and I know he was struggling with whatever it was, whether it was artistic, whatever. He wasn't happy with that record, and to turn around after all that and say he wasn't happy, then I get it. None of us were really happy with the record when it came out. We just were glad it was done, because it took so long. It was ridiculous.
Well, okay, graduating class. Okay, in 1987, the class valedictorians was the Joshua Tree, right?
Yeah.
But it overshadowed the Bunnymen's Gray album, which was outstanding. It overshadowed, New Order's Substance, right? I mean, like, those were perfect records. They were, and Midnight to Midnight, all of that. You all got like left in the dust with the Joshua Tree.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But I will say this, the 1989 releases of Rattle and Hum, which I thought was garbage. Okay. And I still am not a fan of Rattle and Hum very much. Okay. No. And you two are my favorite band. I mean, I've shot them multiple tours, seen them 46 times, but Rattle and Hum was like, what the hell is this, right?
I liked Acton Baby. I thought that
Acton Baby was I felt but
and the funny thing is that they went to Berlin. We went to Berlin to record Midnight to Midnight, and so did they. But their version of Berlin, they used Berlin in the making of their record, whereas we didn't. We just kind of had this. We didn't absorb it in the right way, I don't think, and there was just something. But you know what? The mixes on that record are great, and the recordings are great. So I know everyone's kind of sick of Heartbreak Beat, but I always think that is one of our best efforts.
Well, that was one like Mars was just, it was great. I mean, but the guitar work in there was great. There was just a feeling of it all, and then when I saw the video, it was exactly what I felt. I love that. But Book of Days came out, and I liked it better than Rattle and Hum. Okay,
thank you.
But it was a strange thing because I was like, wait, this is because you had done the whole all of this and nothing with again, one of your best songs ever on that is the tail end of that. I mean, All That Money Wants, but Book of Days was a disaster because nobody expected it to be like that. And a lot of people sat there going, wait, what's this? Because there was, and by then I had gotten all the Mirror Moves and all that, right?
Because what we did was we had done Pretty in Pink.
Right.
The redo of Pretty in Pink, which was just the biggest mistake ever. But so then we had this huge fan base all of a sudden, and then we go in and we've got to make this big polished record.
That was Midnight to Midnight. Yeah.
And then we go and do Book of Days, and then come back out and refuse to play any of Midnight to Midnight. Commercial suicide,
Yeah, I was like
there was all these bros out there going, whoa, why are you not playing, and
I
and
never heard
it's like
Midnight.
a big FU to everybody, and not to some, but to a lot of people. I think we lost a lot of fans because we refused to play. And for what reason? I mean, they're your fans. Why do you refuse to play songs that people are going to see you for? It's just like what that's so self-important and up your own ass that it's just nah.
Well, yeah,
Sorry.
Book of Days tour. Like I said, when you and Knox were over there under that light,
Yeah.
and it was no light on Richard, and you guys were just playing Torch, and Richard was singing that. That was one of the most amazing moments of music in my life, right? I was like,
Thank you.
I couldn't believe how powerful that was. And the rest of it was fine. People were moshing to heaven, right? Cool. Okay. Like, but I was like, wait, no Heartbreak Beat, no All That Money Wants, and no Ghost in You that
Yeah.
night. But Shine, Pretty in Pink, Dumb Waiters, again, House, just like
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
you did that night was great. It was not the set list any of us would have expected. But
Well,
I
I think
remember,
what,
I remember going and listening to Book of Days and thinking for years, I don't like this record, but I can't stop listening to it.
yeah, yeah. Well,
And then I finally it took me years, and I was like, you know what? This is their finest work they've ever done. That was the
I love
best
it.
record, over the top. That was your finest work.
Well, that's funny you should say that because we went back to Rack Studios in London to record that where we'd done our first two albums. Um, and so it was like coming home a little bit. And at one point, Richard and I think we were playing ping pong. And he goes, I think this might be our best record. And I said, you know, yeah, maybe. I think there's still another one, right? I think there's another one in us. I was wrong. I was
Well,
wrong.
World Outside was great. I'm
It
not.
was,
I
it was all
World
right.
Outside was perfect note for note. I'm not going to diss that record at all, but that was it didn't have the absolute spirit and soul I mean, but you could have also put All That Money Wants onto Book of Days and it would have been perfect, right?
We
It would have.
should have.
Yeah.
All that money wants um, was our return for after midnight to midnight, and it was displaced. It should have been included on Book of Days. It really should have. It was the same. It was coming from. It was cut from the same cloth. If that's a good way of putting it. It came from the same spirit, the same attitude. It came post what had happened to me after personally after midnight to midnight was I had an accident and I had a piece of glass in my wrist and it took me a long time to get better physically. It took me a long time. It was just a dumb thing. I'd punched something and I didn't realize what it was. Post tour, and ended up with a piece of glass right in my wrist. And there's another story in that. It'll come out eventually, but it's not something I want to talk about right now. But it came from that all of a sudden, like I got my wings clipped. I came from the ego ramps. We all came back. We came down off the ego ramps and back to like the psychedelic furs as we first knew ourselves, which was much darker, much more introspective way of looking at things. And yeah, that was probably one of my happiest times recording with Richard and Tim. My other happiest time was probably Forever Now, because it was
Mm-hmm.
just and prior to that, the first two
I mean, well,
albums.
Mirror Moves, all of it. Yeah, it's just.
Mirror Moves, we had some fun doing it, but there was some artistic, tension there, and a lot of weird shit went down. It was like I was living in England, they were living in New York. My demos were just me playing. Their demos were like all these other people playing on it. There's a different, and then in the middle we had Keith Forsey, who was trying to tell us there's this song by Funboy 3 called Our Lips Are Sealed. You should do that. You should do something like that. In the end, he ended up writing Don't You Forget About Me and gave it to
Simple Minds,
Simple
yeah.
Minds. But yeah. So that was an interesting, but yeah, the first two albums making those because that was the original band. That was everything was all at once, all the time, every day, every night. Forever Now was really just the three of us with some newer people coming in. Although Ed Buller, who was with us in the writing process, wasn't there with us in the recording process on Forever Now. I still stay in touch with him, and he went on to produce Suede and Pulp, and have a pretty good career as a producer. So then post Mirror Moves and post the tour for that, then we got into the Pretty in Pink remake, and then it was Midnight to Midnight, which took forever, and then coming down off that, we're in the Dark Room, but actually felt pretty good, So that was that's where we came home to roost. I think was
to make
yeah, was Book of Days.
Book of Days.
Yeah.
Well, you and I had talked about this before. You told me this story about how you and Mars were out on a rampage.
Oh God.
And I said, do you want to talk about that? Or because I said, the story you just told me, that's all that money wants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to go there. I mean,
okay, all right.
Stories of addiction are just like what had happened was we had a pretty crazy time, and I woke up one day realizing that I had a major problem, and I had to fix my life pretty quick. Otherwise, I was just going to go downhill pretty quick. And
yeah, I mean, all that
it went away, and haven't been there since.
Oh yeah, it was like once you realize what that song is about, and I'll leave that out to everybody else. Go listen very deeply. It is about drugs, and that's all I will say about it. But it's very very subtle about it, and the song isn't about money. That's what I figured out. I brought it up to Richard, and he's like, "Yeah, you caught that. Good,
Yeah.
But
I love that about Richard. I love that about him, that his words always painted pictures in my head.
He's a hell of a songwriter. His lyrics are, yeah.
He always did it for me. He always did it for me. Except the times when he didn't, and that was just acceptable because not everyone's a Maserati, but the 9-10 times out of 10, he came through, and I still to this day, sometimes a lyric will pop into my head and kind of go, oh, fuck me.
Yeah, he's a lyrical genius, man.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, I would sit there and listen to his stuff, and I'd write it all down. I'd reread it, before the internet,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like how to say painted lies on broken lips that promise heaven tastes like this. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that I believed in you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow, just that's saying you fucking lied to me. It was just brilliant. I mean, how poetic to say you're a liar.
And the thing is that I could identify with so much of what he wrote. It felt personal,
mm-hmm.
And that I think is key. When something feels like it touches you on a personal level, you're like, is that about me? Or is it about my relationship with this person? It's like any band that watches Spinal Tap thinks it's about them,
Yeah.
And that's not a hard one to imagine when you think about every band is its own soap opera. There's always, there's the characters are just they nailed it, with that film. They nailed the whole music business at the time in that film, and
I haven't seen part 2 yet.
No.
I hear if you're a real music fan, then it's great. If you're just looking for, like they say, it's written catered to the music fans with a bunch of funny jokes in there.
Right.
But like the line where he said, like a name I call my life, let it never show.
Mm-hmm.
All of this and I regret, not a day that I was sent. Like, man, there was some serious heartbreak in that song. It's
Yeah.
like you can feel it.
Richard's definitely been through it. He has been able to channel uh, uh, love and loss, regret, loss, and you know, he is able to channel, or has been able to channel, a lot of human emotion, uh, much like Bowie had done. But I think that Richard actually kind of has an edge to
Well,
him.
Richard, I always thought was if Bowie and Lou Reed created a child, that would have
Yeah,
been
it would be a glam Bob Dylan, because I think that a
a
lot of
glam Bob Dylan. Yeah.
I think where a lot of where Richard came from was listening to early Bob Dylan, like Blonde on Blonde. I mean, he makes no bones about it. I think he feels that Bob Dylan was probably his biggest influence, when it comes down to it. Um, and he and I was never I didn't get Bob Dylan for a long time until I did, and then it all made sense to me, because there is no other songwriter like him, that can weave words in a pattern that it's a different cloth for a different suit, for a different shirt, for different people at any given time. There's meaning, there's nuance, there's depth, there's everything that you need to get to kind of make it your own. And you
Hmm.
might not get it right, but it's yours, and you hold that. And not, I mean, not obviously not every song is that complex, but I did understand. I finally did understand Richard's love for Bob Dylan, and his respect for him. I mean, Bob Dylan wrote us a song called "Mixed Up Kid" or something like that, because his daughter was in the Furs, into the Furs, and he wrote us lyrics, and he wrote us a song, and he said, "Whatever you do, don't change the lyrics." And Richard didn't like the lyrics, so we didn't do the song. We didn't do a Bob Dylan
It
song,
didn't.
but
You didn't
Richard
do
didn't
a
like the
song that
lyrics.
Bob Dylan gave you.
Yes,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. He's like, no, didn't.
But if Richard's heart wasn't into it,
Oh, well, that's it.
I guess he felt that way after Midnight to Midnight. He just my heart isn't in this. I can't do it like that. It
I
was.
I I think he suffered personally because of Midnight to Midnight. I think he had like a major panic attack over it, and the panic attack was happening way before the record came out. I think
Okay.
he knew that what was happening, what was going on, the way it was going. It's kind of like a relapse for
Hmm.
for for a drunk. The relapse comes way before the actual crash. It's everything that leads up to it, and I believe that he felt in his heart of hearts that post Mirror Moves. I don't know if he really wanted to be a pop star, or he wanted to be an introspective songwriter, and I think he was struggling with that uh, for a long time, you know. Um, and I wouldn't be able to answer it fully, but I suspect that is a part of what was bothering him at the time. I think he was having inner turmoil about his work.
Well,
And
because of all of that, though, even going back to the first album, all the way up to Mirror Moves, yeah, Midnight to Midnight aside, like that was a weird blip on the screen. It was pop, whatever. But I've always found Richard to be a very enigmatic character. Like
yeah,
like the monolith in 2001, right? There's Richard Butler that's just so hard to describe.
yeah,
And
he's
he was just a very enigmatic person. And
yeah.
even when I worked the tour and I would sit there and talk to him, I had lunch with him and we chatted, and it was like, man, this guy's really deep. And he wasn't being a dick. He was just, hey, but he was still just,
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
very cool. He's always been cool, and I've met him and talked to him, but he just wasn't. I still, even after talking to him and asking him questions, trying not to be fanboy, I still was like, understand, I don't understand this guy, you know, and
I,
he's,
I, you're not supposed to. I don't think. I think that's you. you're not supposed to. I mean, he will open up. He's opened up to me in the past. We've shared a lot of stuff together. But I mean, he put up with a lot of shit from me, and quite, and maybe too much. Obviously too much. But
Well, you guys
I
are
put
really
up, I put
strong
up with a lot of shit
personality.
from him too. But yeah, it's just I felt um, we were equally divided about certain things, and we were equally together on other things. Um, and it's just, I always, at the end of the day, I have nothing but respect for him. I mean, it's hard to kind of say that any otherwise. Um, the times that we did have together that were like awesome, they were fun, crazy times. There were times that they weren't so great. And then he was also going through personal, issues, you know, um, relationships, as was I, as was Tim, as was, everybody. We were growing up on the road. We
Hmm.
were, we're coming of age again on the road, and that's a tough thing, when you've got all those pressures of touring, and you've got, schedules that are not really jiving with how that you really want to live your life, but you're on this train, you're on the crazy train, and you can't get off.
The wrong train.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I well, like, okay, I remember I was in Boston and you were with the Go-Go's and B-52s.
yeah,
And I'm standing up there in front and I'm dancing, I'm having a great time. 'Cause I hadn't seen you guys in years, right? Since 92, I guess. That was the last time I'd seen you guys. Was Book of Day. So you come through Boston with the B-52s and the Go-Go's, and I'm having the best, and I'm there, and there was your daughter. She was sitting, she had her laminate, and I was like, "Are you?" And I pointed to you, and she's like, "No, no, 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 no." I'm like, "Yeah, you are." And then afterwards, I'm talking to you, and Sophie walked up and said, "Hey, Dad." I'm like, "I knew it," you know.
yeah, yeah.
But I remember meeting you that night, and it was just really fun to just like reconnect and just go, "Hey, tell me a little bit about what's happened all this time." And you're like, "Oh, I moved to Woodstock, walked the dog," just
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and and then the next several times through Boston we talked, but that Bunnyman tour was funny because when you picked up Richard Fortus, he had been out for a while, and then he
yeah,
just came in. And I remember it was during the Bunnyman sound check, and he and I were at the catering table eating sandwiches and just talking. And Richard was like, "I can't believe I'm like sharing the stage with the Bunnymen, man. They're like I grew up worshiping these guys, and that was a cool moment,
mhm,
getting that. Richard Fortus was always, and man, the stories about that guy as well. But I've
mhm,
the last time I saw him, I gave him shit about the Backstreet Boys, and
yeah.
but man, what a there's so much depth of all the guys around you. Even Frank just recently, having left Guns N' Roses, he'd been in there forever.
Yeah.
But I remember Frank was Love Spit Love, and then he was in the Furs for how long?
Yeah, a few years, and then I mean, both Frank and Fortis were in Love Spit Love. But what had happened was that there was an opening in in Guns N' Roses. Tommy Stinson was playing bass at the time because Duff wasn't in the band,
Yeah,
and there was like the Velvet Revolver kind of era as well, where Slash wasn't involved. All these other guitar like
yeah.
it was a mixture
That was
of
a weird family story. I met Velvet Revolver. I've met everybody in Guns N' Roses except for Axel, but I'm like, but I've met everybody in the new Guns N' Roses too. But
Tommy Stinson was like the catalyst I believe was the catalyst to get Fortis in there, and it's funny because I'll tell you the story afterwards. Um, uh, so uh, so then Fortis had joined, and then I think he kind of like got Frank a gig, kind of. And I know that Frank had been having a hard time. He'd been working with one of these kind of like Latin type of acts that had Robbie Rosa. He was working for, and he was getting all cut up about that. He was in LA. He was trying to make it, and he got an audition with Guns and GNR, and he was in. He was off, and he was just like he could like breathe. So yeah, they both went into Guns N' Roses pretty quick. But I remember seeing Tommy that one night and chatting with him, and then a few years later, I'm at a club locally. I think it was like in Albany. I went to maybe no. It was in Pittsburgh. I was working with a band called Seven Color Sky. I was working with them, and I saw that Tommy was playing, so I went to see him. I thought I'll just show up, you know. So I went to see him play, and after the show, he gets off the stage, and he looks at me, and he starts like his wide open eyes, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" You know, and it's like he's grabbing me and stuff, and I'm like, "Oh, good to see you, Tommy." You know, he was really happy to see me. So then, so then, I. So that you know, like, and he goes off then after whatever, and so then I go to I think to the drummer or one of the musicians in the band that kind of looked a little bit like Frank Ferrer, but he wasn't. The guy had some mutton chops on, and I said, "Ah, it's a great show, man. Thanks." And he was just like, "Oh yeah, thanks." 5 minutes later, he comes back to me. He goes, "I didn't realize who you were." He goes, "I used to fetch you beers when you came to, I don't know, wherever it was." He said, "I used to watch you play." Um, I forget his name now, but it was just this total reversal because Tommy was like, "Oh no, that's the dude from the Furs," you know, and I think he just went, "Oh fuck," you know, and it just came over and went, "Oh, I remember you. And you used to get me to get your beers every time you came through," and it was just like he was like working in the club, or his dad was working in the club, and I wasn't like getting him to get me beers. I was just like, "Can you go grab me a beer from from the dressing room or something like
Yeah.
that to do, you know?"
But he
Um,
was like, to him, he was fanboy. It was, yeah, yeah.
yeah. It was just like, "Yeah, thanks." And then like 5 minutes later, so be careful.
Well, like we all have stories from the Rock and Roll Circus, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I've like Mars, I was talking to him for quite a bit. I had no idea he was sick.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him on Facebook, and I sent him some pictures that I'd gotten of a few Furs gigs that I'd shot over the last few years when he was on.
Uh,
And I got to go find the ones I got of Frank too. I have some great shots of Frank up there,
uh,
but and Rich Good. I mean, but
did you hear about Rich's house?
no, Rich
Uh,
Good.
yeah.
Oh, did he lose in the fire?
Yeah, he lost it. He lost his whole house in that place he has in California in the desert.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I just texted with him yesterday because my son Oliver was just like, "Holy shit!" And Rich had posted on a thing called Threads.
Uh-huh.
He said, that it had pictures of his house, but it had burnt down. You
See,
know,
I don't know Rich Good very well. I mean, I've met him, shook his
super
hand,
sweet
said hello.
guy.
Yeah,
Super sweet
he
guy.
he's a good guy. I mean, he's always a nice guy. But like I sent a picture of Mars where he's playing his big tenor sax that's as big as him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know that one I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, that's the well. Yeah, I mean, he's well, yeah. And as far as I know, he only plays tenor. He doesn't play contra or anything. But yeah, the tenor next to him is like, I mean, it's a big
It's
saxophone.
gigantic, but
Little
he's
guy,
such a. I didn't realize how short Mars was
yeah, little guy. Yeah.
until then. But I sent him these pictures, and he said, "Hey, thanks. These look great." I said, "And wonderful, and we just chatted here and there, right? He appreciated the ones I gave him and all that, and you know, not a big thing, but we chatted a few times. Like I think the last I talked to him was probably like 3 weeks before he died, and then
Yeah.
uh
I
like
took him a lot. Yeah,
it
before.
was all these jazz fans, jazz musicians I know in Chicago were posting that he died. That was how I heard. It was
Yeah,
all these jazz guys. I'm like, whoa, that was
yeah. That was horrible. You know, it was very sad. It happened very quickly. Um, and a huge loss, you know, huge loss for music in general, but huge loss for the Furs. I mean, they don't sound the same, you
Yeah.
know, right now. And you know, it's also his spirit is sadly missing, you know.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I don't think anybody has a bad thing to say about Mars Williams.
No,
You
no.
know, I mean, but he was a legend in Chicago.
Yeah, he was a pretty much a legend anywhere he went because you know, people knew his work. You know, Liquid Soul was kind of, you know, like a great alternative sort of jazz band, jazz sort of hip hop. He had like, you know, it was like a circus he had running there at
He
one
was
point.
also great on Satellite Paradiso as well.
Oh
You know,
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, yeah, of course, you know,
I mean,
and
Paradiso was an all-star cast. That's all I can
yeah,
say. It was an all-star cast. You had everybody on there were seasoned veterans,
yeah.
and I still think like everybody needs to go and dig into that record. By the way, I'm going to put the link up here in the interview. It is such a good album.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was definitely a labor of love. Um, you know, like the cellist on that, Joe Quayle. She is an amazing musician. She lives in London.
Was
She
she
plays
the was she the session one for Book of Days?
no, no,
Okay.
no. She if you check her out, Joe Quayle or joequayle.com, she is a fantastic musician. What she does is she does loops. She loops what she does and plays over it, and then transposes it, plays it backwards. So all that crazy stuff, that's all her. You know, all the crazy stuff um oh God, the last track. Um, no, so I can't remember my shit
So I
now.
gotta
Just
pull that
so
up
long.
now. Okay. All right.
You know, and then a lot of other stuff too. I mean, I was blown away when she started working with me. Um, I would send her stuff, and she would send it right back, and it would be great. I mean, there were so many people on that album that you know, I owe huge thanks to Roger Morris, and Duncan Kilburn from the Furs. You know, they
Yeah,
really
Duncan.
big things
Gosh,
on.
yeah.
Um, uh, you know, it's amazing to me that they gave their time and their energy into something that they never got paid for. You know, it was I was unable to pay anybody. But you know what? If I sell some records, I certainly would love to, you know, dish some money out. You know, after the fact. It feels always feels to me like I could never do this again. You know, I could never like ask people to play for free anymore. I didn't have any trouble, or I did have trouble before, but I'm just too, I don't know if I could do it again. You know, it was tough. It was a
Hmm.
tough thing to do. It's also tough to try and fund a record. It's tough to actually put a record out anymore. There's almost literally no point in releasing a record anymore because there's like you know if you get like some streams great but you can't I mean you can't you have to what is it the only way you can really make money is if you're a legacy act or like you're a really huge act and you just keep touring. No one really cares about the new stuff, so you know they might go, oh yeah, it's great, it's the best thing you've done since the last thing you did, but you know, to be honest with you, they're there for like the hits. And
Yeah.
you know, very few bands I think can really kind of maintain. um,
But like you too, let's go back to that. Since the graduating class of 87, right? Yeah, they could print a record and all the neophytes will go buy it.
of course.
They know that they will sell every print of that record.
Well, of course. Well, that's what I'm saying. That when you reach a certain level, like the Cure. Now, the
Hmm.
Cure at least put out something more interesting and more introspective with what they do. I saw them, you know, a couple of years ago, and they were fabulous. They put on a 3 hour show. You know, they were just everything was great about what they did. You know, um, they not everything that they've ever done is the best thing they've ever done, but they at least have put out material that kind of like jives with their past, their present, and potentially their future. I think Robert Smith is a brilliant artist. Again, one of those guys that can go out and tour. Gary Newman's another one. I just saw, I watched him. I know he's been out on tour with the First. Everybody said that they've been to this double bill. They'll go, he was amazing, and like where Nine Inch Nails got their shtick from.
Yeah, oh yeah, man. Yes. I think like Gary Newman, he had a real slump for a while. And then he came back with that new sound. Like New Anger was a great record in what, 90? Was that 90? New Anger?
I would have to ask a friend of mine who knows his stuff really well.
Yeah, I've got a pile of it signed. I went backstage. I went backstage with him once, and I handed him a bag of vinyl. He's like, "Oh God, I'm gonna get writer's cramp," but he signed everything. We talked for a long time there. I've met him several times. He had a slump after that for about 10 years that he just wasn't hitting it right, and then at about early 2000s, he came out with his new sound, and man, he went crazy. It was awesome. That new anger was based a lot on Blade Runner.
Right. Well, I love his band. They look great. They sound great. He's an amazing guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
So just there's footage of him playing. I think like in I can't remember where it was, but in California, just with the Furs. That's around that same time, and just really really great.
I've heard the same thing. Is that he buried? I heard that he stole the show and pretty much, across the board here. So
yeah, definitely a powerhouse, and good for him. But yeah, I've discovered a new bunch of music that I really like now. I'm kind of more into the dream pop stuff that is like, for me now, like that's kind of like where my head's at. It's kind of like post Cure, post Cocteau Twins. It's heavier, but it's still poppy.
Do you like Churches?
Yeah, Churches. Yeah.
Churches, Naked and Famous, London Grammar. I love that stuff.
Yeah. I went to see Frankie Rose recently. She was great. Check her out. 16 Ways, just a great song, and all the other stuff that she's done. And Magic Wands.
I know those kids. Yeah, I actually have been talking to them.
I love them.
Well, shout out. I know them. I'll be shooting them again.
Please tell them I fucking love them. I love them. Like, they're just so good.
So I interviewed them. I had them on my show a while ago, and I photographed their show when they opened for the Birthday Massacre.
Okay.
And they're fantastic. So yeah, if you ever want to see them live or when they go through, I will get you backstage to see them.
I would die. I would absolutely die. I love them.
That is so cool that they are going to be tickled pink to hear you say this, man.
I love them. I really do. And I also love Frankie Rose. I went to see her a few weeks ago. She played in Kingston, and I told her a story about one of her songs, and she was tickled pink. That's one of those, yeah.
Well, do you like Birthday Massacre, Gunship, those guys?
I don't really know those bands. Are like, just I'm kind of like just getting into it, but those two bands like right now are like, and then I kind of like. There's a few other like Magic Shop I really like.
Don't know them.
And the Choir Boys, that's kind of like them. There's a few that I'd have to look now. Let me just look real quick. I'll fire off a friend of mine sent me a really good kind of compilation of stuff. Tamarin, Choir Boy, Dum Dum Girls, which is basically Frankie Rose's early band. Oh my God, there's a song by Magic Wands called Space. I love it.
Dude, I have a pile of their vinyl right here. It's all autographed, man.
Oh, really? Oh, cool. Yeah, tamarind porcelain raft, mood rings. You know, yeah, yeah. You know, I've got enough. Oh, LeBlond voices. Um, Marilyn. I don't know. There's
Okay,
tons.
there's a oh yeah, we'll have to we'll do this off because nobody wants to hear us banter about but um let's tie this up here. The song "Still"
Hmm.
on that one, that was a message of hope on the record.
Yeah, yeah,
I felt like that was, I mean, it just was a very positive vibe to it. You know, let's see, just some of the lines: come around, bring yourself around. I believe I can see the various points of view. You know, it was the thrown against the crashing waves, supercharged with ranting raves. The drowning one who never sees the shore. Um, I don't know. It's just like the line just it's a
yeah,
little more bright today.
yeah.
It's a little more bright today, right? I see a little bit more light today. It's a little bit more bright today. I mean, just that record is a gem, man.
Thank you. Well, I didn't write the lyrics.
I know you didn't write the
I did.
lyrics. That was
I
all
did.
Fred, but man, the record is very powerful. It's a good record and it's a must listen for any, music junkies like ourselves, right? That's just obvious.
Yeah,
But
thank you. I mean, it was one of that track in particular. Gail said I have to sing on this track,
you
and
got to
so
put me in touch with Gail, man. Yeah, I got to just
all
I
right.
would
Yeah,
but
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, she's very approachable. She's a a real person with no ego, no
oh,
issues.
I saw her once with
Love.
Bowie on stage, and she was just like Bowie was cracking one-liners, and then the drummer do punch, and she go
Yeah,
thump thump, right,
yeah,
like they
yeah,
were just like, oh, Bowie's gonna be telling jokes, all right,
mhm,
you know,
yeah.
and she would just, and he said something one time that was, and he looked at her, and she's like, I'm not even gonna touch that, David, like right there on
Right.
stage. I was like, she's
Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah, she's
Yes.
so if she's
Yeah.
as witty as she comes across on stage, man.
There's two sides to every story. There's two sides. There's multiple. She has multiple facets to her life and her personality. They all shine equally. Um, she lives it. She's a true artist in every sense of the word. She she lives her music, and she exudes uh, a love and a coolness and a calmness and a confidence about what she does that few artists have.
And she's a
She's
hell
a
of a
huge
bassist.
and she's a huge Barbara Streisand fan. So
Get out. No, and she's a hell of a bassist. So, um, anyway, John, once again, we talk like this whenever we're on the phone or whatever. So this is one of those like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, let's turn this into an interview. Thanks for your time, everybody. And please, everybody, go out and listen to Satellite Paradiso. It's up on Spotify and wherever else you can find it. It's a great record. It will rock. You will. It's just. It's a super group of. I mean, the people that John pulled in on that. I'll post the stuff here in the link uh,
thank
of this episode. So, John, again, always a pleasure talking. It's we're
yeah.
and
We can,
so
yeah. It is a pleasure always talking, Jeremy, and thank you for your love, your enthusiasm. Thank you for just being you, mate. It's
oh oh
you know,
hey, your music got me through a ton. And I can't say thanks enough for all of it over the last. It's been 40 years since I started listening to you.
yeah.
So, yeah. So
I,
anyway,
I I'm very lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. That's it's
oh
that,
well, yeah. With so many of your stories, yes, you were in the right place, the
I
right
was in
time.
the right place at the wrong time. I also happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and many of them too. But
Yeah,
that's another story
that's a story.
entirely.
All right, everybody. So check it out, Satellite Paradiso, and this is John Ashton from Satellite Paradiso and the Psychedelic Furs. And so get out there, dig into this music, and take care, be good to each other, and let music do awesome in your lives.